A common topic of discussion in the twin flame community is about focusing on yourself and how a big part of that involves healing. Even more common seems to be a certain mentality with healing, which is pushing through our own healing. What I've often come across is to focus on yourself, to work on healing. And when I actually opened to my spiritual journey, meaning I accepted the things that I was experiencing weren't only about my twin, but about me opening to my unique spiritual path. And I'm not one of those people who discredits the role of their twin. I believe they're every part of my entire life experience. And it's just during my journey that I'm awakened to that. And my twin is too, just in different ways. But after going through activation, where I came to recognize a lot of imbalances in different areas of my life, I started reading about twin flames and saw a lot of talk about working on healing, pointing out things like abandonment issues, childhood traumas, abuse, lots of things we carry around as wounded energy within us. But as I was getting into meditation practices, I very strongly heard my inner voice telling me that it would come to me when it's meant to. As I followed my guidance, I learned that I didn't need to try to figure out the details of healing, but just be aware of the energy. And as the really heavy imbalances were brought to my attention during my activation, I learned that I would be led through healing during my journey, that I didn't need to force or fix any of it. I experienced immense spiritual growth because I really didn't have any kind of spiritual background other than a religious upbringing through Christianity. But as an adult, I'd lost faith in that and actually went through my first dark night of the soul years before meeting my twin, where I didn't have any belief in a higher power at all. And I think this happened to break down my old way of thinking so I would open to my true path. Then I experienced a lot of foundational growth after awakening, and through ascension, that's been built upon again and again. It's been expanding, and it's been the same way with healing. With activation, I learned about my heavy imbalances, understanding there were thoughts and feelings, beliefs, habits. Some of those I'd buried deep down. They became a part of my subconscious programming, and I learned that these imbalances were keeping me from being my true self. Then, little by little, I went through healing with different things, often looking at romantic relationships of the past, but also a lot of childhood wounds and traumas, especially from my mother. And none of this ever involved blaming anyone. I just recognized what it was and allowed myself to feel the emotions associated with whatever it was, and allowed love through understanding that the people involved had their own imbalances too. Since I've been experiencing an awareness of growth through my heart chakra, I've been going through deeper healing, and with this, I've found I still harbored a good bit of pain. Even though I'd already gone through some healing, and even though I knew it wouldn't all happen overnight, it still surprised me that there was a lot of pain still there within me. After learning to balance through my chakras, and it's not that I am balanced, like I've done it, now what, but I can choose to balance moment to moment every day as it's an ongoing process. So after I learned that, I moved into growth from my heart, and through my inner voice, I knew that I would experience deeper healing and bigger leaps of faith, taking more action, and it's all from the heart. As I've been going through this, I see how cycles of healing are occurring more frequently, and they're lifting me to higher vibrations and are really giving me an understanding of how to incorporate this into all areas of my life. This opens me even more to be the spiritual conduit for our divine energy, mine and my twins. And I think this has happened this way for me because I'm more equipped to handle it now in this stage of my journey because of what I've gone through with previous growth and healing. Not only do I understand it better through expansion of knowledge and awareness, but I'm also able to take it in through love rather than fear, or at least try to because I'm aware of all that now. I discussed in part 4 of From the Heart, Looking Inside, Healing Through Divine Masculine Energy, where I started having these heavy feelings come in out of nowhere and was led through healing sessions with my higher self. This most recent emotion came in with the word anger. But this time I didn't feel angry, I just kept hearing anger. I did feel something though, which felt more like frustration, so I did recognize that. And I think this is like activation. Once we recognize it, we move into the growth and healing through that recognition. So over a period of a few days, I questioned why I was hearing that, and I kept saying to myself, I'm not angry about anything. And it feels more like frustration. And I couldn't even understand why I felt frustrated, except that maybe a certain mood had hit me over those few days. There were little things that happened that were aggravating to me, just everyday stuff. But I didn't see where it would be associated with something deep or something that would actually need my focus through healing, at least not in the way I'd been experiencing. But still, I kept hearing the word anger. So after about 3 days of this, I actually had a dream about a person from my past who I was romantically involved with. Someone I've associated certain wounds with, but because I already experienced some healing, I didn't really think there was much pain still there with that. And I now realize it's because I had suppressed it so deeply and because it had branched out into so many other wounds and it showed up in lots of different ways. It's one of the reasons why it was one of the first things I'd experienced healing with because there's a lot to unpack there. It's going to take time and many cycles of healing. That's my higher self leading me through my best healing. It's not me trying to figure out what might be best. And there's nothing wrong with trying our own methods of healing, so long as we're open to our guidance so that we'll get what we need when we need it. Like, I think a lot of people get caught up in the spiritual side of their journey, especially in following the advice of someone else, like coaches and such. And I think they can give some helpful advice, like what I'm giving now, but we should always be open to our own guidance and not miss what our higher self is showing us. And we all do that sometimes, but thankfully, our higher self will keep leading us. So my healing wasn't directly with that person, it was just the vibrations of my feelings that I was being led through healing with. So even after the dream, I didn't think much of it, but that night as I was about to go to bed, just as with the other healing sessions, I was led to sit and talk about it out loud, to just be receptive through my higher self. And keep in mind, I was still feeling the frustration, but only hearing the word anger. And again, I thought, I don't feel angry about anything. So I heard, just start with one thing. I sat on my bed and I thought about the person from my dream and how my heart was deeply hurt by what happened. And as I sat there thinking about it, I realized that I had expressed some of my feelings during that time, mostly with myself. I kept it to myself pretty much, like put on a mask at work, but let it out when I got home. But even in the privacy of my own home, I never expressed any anger about any of that. As I sat with that, I really felt the frustration surfacing and just started talking about it. I said that I was angry about how he didn't communicate with me, how we were really good friends for so long, yet he felt he couldn't be upfront with me, how he completely turned away, without even a single word, how he used someone else to try to hurt me. And I didn't realize this until this healing session that he was trying to hurt me by being with someone else. Because back then I thought he just decided to be with someone else because I wasn't good enough. The complete communication cutoff was because he was trying to hurt me. But as I talked about this out loud, I realized there was so much I had suppressed related to anger. And the next day, I looked up the difference between anger and frustration, and I had to laugh at how my higher self guides me. Like, it just amazes me still. Instead of feeling anger, I felt frustration. Frustration is something more internally kept, whereas anger is more intense and something we usually show, we let it out. And this really stood out to me because I realized that I had suppressed that anger. I never let him know that I was hurt by him through my anger. He did see me cry one time when it first happened, but I turned away and I never let him see that again, never let him know that I was in pain. I didn't even allow myself to feel it. Like, I closed myself down to all that. And this is why this healing energy came in this way, is not feeling it, but hearing it. And I knew I was supposed to feel it because of the other recent healing sessions I'd gone through. I felt them very strongly. And so when I kept hearing this word, but only felt frustration, it was being shown to me how, by suppressing it, I haven't allowed myself to express it. And that's what frustration is. It's feeling like you can't do anything about it. So we often suppress the anger and get frustrated. And I realized how this was a repeating pattern in other areas of my life and how it had also been a part of my conditioning. With this relationship and so many other things, when I went through feeling like I couldn't do anything to change what was happening, I pretended I didn't care. I usually did cry when I was alone or get upset, whatever, but I then numbed myself. I shut it out. I denied it, denied that I had any feelings about it usually. But I see that I really stopped expressing anger. And I now see a lot of this was because of my pride. but also it was a defense mechanism. But really, I was denying a part of myself that needed to express this. Now, since going through this healing session, dealing with anger and frustration, I recognize the need to release anger in a healthy manner because our feelings are there for us as a part of our expression and experience. And of course, most people have probably heard about expressing ourselves in a healthy way, but experiencing this in this way really opened my eyes to my own needs. I'm also seeing how this is part of what I've gone through with my twin and how it has opened me to having healthier relationships in my future because it allows me to be more in my authenticity. Like earlier in my journey, I learned a lot about raising vibrations. So I thought I should try to always be happy or always be grateful and so on. But then I went through low vibrations, and it helped me to not only learn how to transmute energy, but also to know that as humans, we're meant to experience these different vibrations. Rather than suppressing these feelings, I'm learning to express them in ways that are beneficial to me and my relationships. So, after becoming aware of these feelings, I took a little time to feel out where each of them were coming from. But most of those feelings I've experienced through the healing sessions have come from my solar plexus. And while I do think this affects all of our chakras in some way, this is where I felt it most prominently. So if I look at the mirror aspect of that, it would show up in the throat chakra for my twin. What I've been given for my dynamic, he should be experiencing spiritual growth through the throat chakra right now, through healing cycles related to all of these things that I've been going through myself, such as hopelessness and emptiness and sadness and the anger. And I won't go through each of those individually, but I looked at how they were each associated with my solar plexus or any of my chakras, but the solar plexus and the root are what stood out for me the most. So these might show up in healing with the throat and crown chakras for him because they mirror each other, but especially in the throat. For an example, when I recently allowed myself to feel anger about what happened with that guy a long time ago, I could feel it in my solar plexus. Back then, it caused me to question my worth because I thought he chose the other person over me. And that affected things like my confidence, my self worth, my ability to express myself to others, causing me to feel less secure, to procrastinate, or not take any action at all. And it affects us on all levels, like emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and it takes us away from our soul design. It adds to the pile of wounds, which are vibrations that don't fall within our soul frequency. But now that I'm aware of this, I can heal from it. So when I experience feelings that come out of nowhere, and I believe they're definitely associated with my twin, I've learned to look at what I'm being shown through them rather than just saying, oh, he must be feeling this way right now. So, as we open to this healing, it reflects in each other and within ourselves. My own healing reflects in my solar plexus with my throat, but also reflects in him with that same healing energy. And his throat mirrors his solar plexus, but also mirrors with me and mine. And a mirror that mirrors back a mirror will mirror infinitely. So, this will continue to show up in different ways through our ascension, and it may not even seem like it's linked to healing, but it's all one. It's tied together. Like this is healing more than just through balancing our solar plexus and throat chakras. It's healing feminine and masculine wounded energies for those areas, for example. For him right now, more feminine related. For me right now, more masculine related. And I know this because of our reflection with each other and where I am in my own growth and healing. And as I'm learning to truly express from the heart, so too is he.